looks at Donald Trump every day and thinks today could be the day that I'm the president. Trump is dying.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the Midas Touch Network. Get ready for part 2 with Steve Schmidt. The organization he helped found, Save America Movement, is barely a year old, and it is already redefining what taking on MAGA should look like. This week, Save America Movement released an ad blitz targeting specific enablers of the Trump regime, not just those in government like J.D. Vance, but the billionaires and the sycophants who have bent the knee and empowered this fascist regime. Here's one of them.
This is the face of capitulation and bad judgment. Brad Karp has gutted Paul Weiss, a respectable 150-year-old law firm with a storied legacy of helping the cause of justice. Paul Weiss handled landmark cases like Thurgood Marshall and Brown versus Board of Education and securing a landmark marriage equality victory for Edith Windsor. Since Trump threatened them with retribution via executive order, they're now doing his bidding and giving him $40 million worth of free work. Karp defended his bad judgment to staff, saying it was necessary to prevent the firm's destruction. But Brad Karp's bad judgment doesn't end there. He had dealings with convicted child sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. He turned Paul Weiss into Paul Weiss Epstein. The disgrace will last forever.
This is what going on offense looks like. If we're serious about regime change in this country, we need to undermine the pillars that support the regime. And Steve Schmidt knows how to do it. If you don't know him, Steve was once one of the most influential figures in the Republican Party. He has long since defected and is now one of the most powerful anti-Trump voices out there. And let me just say, we are lucky to have Steve on our side because his attacks on MAGA and Trump's enablers will be relentless. Here's part 2 of our conversation.
I want everyone to understand this. Our Constitution gives temporary power with profound limits placed on it that these people serve at our discretion. They work for us. We're starting a next ad campaign where we will put ads up that geofence the federal courthouse where Judge Janine is operating. And what those ads will say is the federal prosecutor, the Fox News wino, is completely corrupt. Pam Bondi is completely corrupt. And they are going to try to manipulate you good American citizens into indicting Donald Trump's political opponents. And we're going to teach them a word and concept through the advertising. That word is nullify. Nullify the attempts to lock up Donald Trump's opponents by doing what the 20 good citizens did when they said no thanks to the indictments of Mark Kelly, Alyssa Slotkin, and Jason Crow.
I want to ask you about that because you talked to Jason Crow last week when the grand jury threw out the or refused to indict. And it seems to me like this administration didn't realize what they were doing when they tried to take on a former Army Ranger with 90 combat missions, a man who flew intruders and sat on top of a rocket, and a CIA agent with time in a flak jacket in Iraq. What were they thinking? I guess they're just in the habit of people capitulating, of institutions rolling over and giving them what they want. But they picked the wrong fight in Congressman Crow and Senators Slotkin and Kelly. And those are the examples of courage that we need to share with the rest of the country.
One of the great presidential aides of all time worked for John Kennedy, Kenny Donnelly. And his mission in life was to be the first person into the Oval Office every day to tell the president he was full of shit about something. And that's a very important person in any White House around power, around any president. There were plenty of meetings that I was in talking to a member of Congress or a senator before when, that person told me what it is they were going to say to the president in the Oval Office or what it was they were going to say to the vice president. And by the time they walk into the office, trust me, they don't say it. What they do is ask for cufflinks for their kids. And everybody needs to understand this about MAGA, how it's organized. It's a line. And in that line that starts with Trump, J.D. Vance is second in line, and then you have Corey Lewandowski and all those people behind it. But each person has a knife in one hand for the back in front of them, and they have eyes in the back of their head for the knife in the hand behind them. At the beginning of the Ukraine war, there was a Russian tank crew that was out of gas, 3 guys in the tank. They had 2 shells, and you're watching a video of them about to be killed. And so you think about that. That's the end of the chain. That's the end of the line. You have these 3 schmoes in a tank with no gas in a country that's not theirs with 2 shells. Everything that they needed to survive was stolen by someone further up the line. And there is no ambitious person in that line who gets ahead by telling Donald anything that he doesn't want to hear. And so you have a guy who went crazy in the Oval Office about the disrespect he's shown and throwing his ham sandwich, right, sticking it into the wall. He's completely unhinged, and he's surrounded by sycophants. And so Pam Bondi doesn't have contact with normal people. You read the story about Kristi Noem and Corey Lewandowski in the Wall Street Journal, where there's a Coast Guard pilot who is fired because he forgot to pick up Kristi Noem's blanket from one plane to another. Then he's rehired because there's no one to fly the plane, and she's flying around in a 737 MAX, a business